I don't think it's an exaggeration when I say that modern interior design has gotten quite boring. Of course, there are styles and designs that are interesting, but A, they already source a lot of inspiration from the past, so it's not really anything brand new. And B, those styles are not really what people are choosing for their homes anyway. So why are we so afraid of interior design? Why do we always go for something minimalistic? Why do we never go for colors? What is happening? Has it always been that way? What went wrong on the way? I'm opening up this investigation. Let's find out. So I've read a bunch of interior design guides from around 1870s to 1930s to go back to our roots, let's say, and find out where did we go wrong on the way here. Here is all the tips that I found interesting. From Your Home and Its Decoration, 1910. The pleasure of planning and building is vouchsafed, comparatively speaking, to the fortunate few. Many of us must adjust ourselves to environments designed for other people, yet every householder can control to some extent the finish, decorations, and furnishings of the rooms wherein he dwells, and make them speak of his individuality rather than that of the earlier occupant. This is actually kind of comforting because reading most of these, I assumed they were directed at rich people in massive mansions. And it turns out it's directed at rich people with massive mansions, but some of them may have been rented out. So it's also for those who have to rent someone else's space and want to make them more homely. A practical test for home furnishings from 1930. Most of the mistakes that are made in furnishing a home would be avoided if every article were given the following decorator's test. 1. Is it useful? 2. Is it suited to this particular room in size, color, and style? 3. Is it suited to the people who use it? And 4. Is it beautiful? I think nowadays we tend to focus on the first 3 rules, but is it beautiful does not really become a priority when choosing an item for the household, be it furniture, be it appliances. We mostly want practicality, comfort. When it comes to appliances, probably safety, but all those guys are like, why not have both? Why not have practicality and beauty? That's the direction that we lost somewhere along the way. They also have a useful tip about impulse buying. Don't start decorating your home by going on a shopping trip. Start by analyzing carefully the room itself. Is the ceiling high or low? Is the room light or rather dark? These are things over which you have no control. Having determined upon the type of room you are going to have, formal or informal, bright or subdued, the next step is to make a diagram of the room on paper. Show all of the openings and the wall space in correct scale. This is really useful when you're planning a room to have a sketch of the room, because in my case, I always assume I have more space than I do. So in the drawing, I would be like, oh yeah, the bed's in this corner. And then it turns out the bed is filling out half of the room. So it's really important to have the proportions in mind when setting up your rooms. So these are all sensible tips. This video is sponsored by Saily. Let me paint you a scene. I have just landed in Edinburgh, ready to take part in a historical weekend with my friends. I turned my phone back from flight mode, only to find out that my SIM card is not working. Mind you, I'm about to travel to a castle in the middle of nowhere, so this is pretty inconvenient. That's when I remembered about Saily. So if you're somehow in the same situation, here's what you should do. Download Saily, apply the coupon code ZEBROWSKA at checkout for 15% off, install the eSIM following the instructions, and then it will automatically activate after landing at your destination. What's pretty cool is that you can install an eSIM only once, and you don't have to install a new eSIM for each country. Saily has different sized data plans in over 200 destinations, and it will also send you a notification before your data runs out, and then you can easily top it up. There is also a built-in ad blocker that can reduce your data usage by up to 28.6%. All Saily eSIM plans are compatible with iOS and Android devices. So go get an exclusive 15% discount on Saily data plans by downloading the Saily app and using the code ZEBROWSKA at the checkout. Let's move on to interior decorating for everybody from 1924 and their general principles of interior decorating. Have a theme and follow it. Valid. Elements in a room should balance. There should be unity throughout the house and in each individual room. Have a color code. adapt the color scheme to the use of the rooms. I think this is still very much prevalent in interior design. We tend to think that, oh, the bedroom needs to be peaceful colors so you feel more relaxed, and then dark rooms should be brighter and lighter. I think this is one thing that we are currently going away from because we're breaking all the rules and we're trying new things. And I think that's actually good, because why do dark rooms always have to be brighter? Maybe let's embrace the darkness. I'm not a Sith Lord, by the way. What are you talking about? Begin with the background. Now, I want to stop here because begin with the background is something that appears in most of these guides. I think it mostly means focusing on the walls and the floor and the ceiling before moving on to furniture and accessories. In general, they seem to put great emphasis on the walls, whether it was choosing the right paint color or the right wallpaper, the right pattern for the wallpaper, doing stencils, etc. See that floor, walls, woodwork and ceiling are right. Then concentrate on the hangings and rugs, next on the furniture, and lastly on the decorative material. This is difficult to implement because I feel like in my case, I'm very much the type of a person that walks around the shop and is like, I kind of need this figuring of a penguin, and they're like, yeah, but your budget is small and you should focus on the big stuff first. But why not get the penguin and then wait for the furniture, you know? Visualize each room and mentally furnish it before purchasing any article to go into it. That is useful advice. I think it's important to have a vision for each room in your place, because then when you're out and about, when you're looking for inspiration, you know if it matches your vision or if it doesn't match your vision. Floors should be darker in value than the woodwork or the walls, and walls darker than the ceiling. Again, one of the rules that we have since broken, because I don't know if you've ever seen a white room with yellow ceiling, but it looks fantastic. So a lot of these rules were very strict, and we have since experimented a little bit with it, and it turns out that we have found some creative solutions. So not all of new thoughts in interior design are rubbish. Some of them are actually improvements, I think. At least we're maybe more flexible with it, but at the same time we are sometimes so afraid of experimenting. Do not have pattern in everything. I think we are far from that. When strong pattern is used, secure relief by plain or subdued patterns. Leave some plain wall or floor spaces to rest the eye. This is something that I think we still practice a lot. Rules for curtains. In formal rooms, richly furnished full-length draperies are suitable. Long straight draperies are also used in rooms with low ceilings. For simple rooms or rooms with high ceilings, use short curtains that end at the sill. Do not mix the costly with the cheap. 100% disagree. I mean, I don't have that many costly items, but I absolutely disagree. I think we are absolutely fine with mixing thrifted items with antiques and then modern designer stuff that I don't really have, but I think it all, you know, is up to you. Simplicity is a virtue. Girl, not in this house. Don't add a lot of useless accessories. Don't keep a lot of trash for sentimental reasons. Why is this Loki calling me out? In buying or keeping accessories, ask, does it justify itself? Is it worth dusting? So this 1920s Marie Kondo is coming after me because I like to have a lot of stuff. Sue me. Dusting? When? Like, when realistically did you have to go through your things and be like, wow, they're so dusty? Literally maybe like the open spaces, but I assure you, especially in my flat, which is kind of away from the road, it's not really that bad. Once a couple of months is enough. Or am I dirty? Keep to a given scale. As a general rule, the scale of all forms, rugs, furniture, pictures, lamps, vases, textile patterns, etc., will be increased directly with the size of the room. It kind of makes sense. Like, I wouldn't hang a massive portrait in a small room because it's gonna overwhelm the room. Eliminate the ugly and the unessential. Replace the medium with something better. Make your home better and better every day in every way. This is kind of motivating because there is a lot of stuff that I have bought when I moved in that was supposed to be just temporary, but it ended up being permanent because I just got used to it and I forgot about it in a way. But they're so right. You should constantly, if your budget allows, improve your house. It could be one item a month, but the result would be that in a couple of years you'll end up with a beautiful house with items that you love to look at. One other thing that the guides have in common is choosing a point of interest or a point of attraction in the room and then arranging the whole room around that point. That's something that they mention a lot. I think nowadays this idea still exists and is mostly referred to as a focal point, but here is what they had to say about it. From 1930, decide upon a point of interest. Just as every painting has a point of interest, so the composition of your room should be planned to place emphasis on one particular thing. If there is a fireplace in the room, 9 times out of 10, that should be the main point of interest. Or perhaps a rare old hanging or a grand piano can be so placed, with other furniture grouped around it, that it becomes the center of interest. After you have established a point of interest, the problem is to build a pleasingly balanced room around it. From 1878, from the home of an honest man, a simple niche of any incombustible material with an outlet for smoke and a hearth for the ashes and the household gods is the fundamental essential of that feature without which no house is complete. Do not think of giving it up. Indeed, if you can have but one, the house or the fireplace, give up the house and keep the fire. They were obsessed with their fireplaces, and I have to say, they don't even have to be practical. They don't even have to be working. If you're concerned about the environment and you want to keep it green, you can just have a fake one or you can have the remains of a real one and then just put candles there or just keep your books there or something, but it looks good. I have to say, I've done it in my flat, as you know, and it is the focal point of the room for sure. That's the thing that draws you when you enter. In 1936, they also wrote about the climax of the room. With so many possible groupings to be made, perhaps you are puzzled to know where to begin. The easiest plan is to consider what part of the room is architecturally the most interesting, and to make it the climax by arranging there your most important group. This is what decorators call the dominant center or the chief center of interest. When this has been done, the groups of minor importance will almost arrange themselves. Another thing is colors. So unsurprisingly, vintage interiors were full of colors, and a good chunk of those interior design guides were about colors, about choosing colors, about color theory, arranging the colors together, etc. This is something I feel like is a lost art because we are petrified of color. I mean, obviously I see interiors online that use color in a really creative way, but 9 times out of 10, if I enter someone's place, it's gonna be white. The walls are gonna be white. They don't have to be that way. I mean, you can experiment with colors and then paint it white anyway. It's not a big deal. I know it seems like a big deal because you have to move a lot of things around, but it's one day work. And it can improve your space so much and make it so much more interesting. From 1930, color is the greatest single force in decorating. Hear you. Consider how the color yellow can bring cheer to the dreariest room in the house. How a deep, rich red gives the aspect of costliness to a most inexpensive chair. Too many home decorators are afraid of color. This is 1930. Girl, I have some news for you. It's gotten so much worse. Why can't they remember that nothing is so restful as a garden with all its riot of color? But happily enough, the modern tendency is to abandon the drab taupes of yesterday and substitute lively, glowing colors. Again, I have some news for you. This is not the modern tendency anymore. 1878. The ceiling must not be white, but a subdued gray or an invisible blue. This is interesting. I wonder what the reasoning behind it was. 1936. Color makes the room come alive. Color is the decorator's most potent aid. It brings life and sparkle to dull rooms, hides shabbiness, transforms the ugly, softens glare. By means of color, you can push out or pull in the walls, raise or lower the ceiling, flood a bleak north room with a sunshiny glow, or coax into cozy intimacy a room that is big and bare. Even more unsurprisingly, old interiors used way more patterns than we use nowadays. They loved patterns. And they weren't afraid that the patterns are gonna clash. I mean, they were a little worried, but not to the extent of not using them at all. 1930. The growing appreciation of design is the most recent development in decoration. Pattern, whether on floor, walls, or fabrics, gives sparkle and life to an interior, being far more stimulating than plain surfaces. I have to say this particular book shows some of the most hideous floor designs I have ever seen. So the interwar period may have overdone it a little bit. 1878, a good idea about decorating doors. A door is just as much a piece of furniture as a wardrobe or a washstand and should be treated accordingly. This is a dialogue, so another person says, but if the panels are to be decorated, they should have beautiful paintings in oil, which none but an artist can execute. Not at all. A plain stripe, a fret, or an ivy vine in outline or flat color, an arabesque of your own design. There is no absolute need of originality. There are plenty of graceful and appropriate designs that you can adopt. I think there is no absolute need of originality is such a good line, because we are so afraid of doing things that other people might consider lame. That's the way I would call it. It's perfectly fine to do something that's tacky because it's your own home that you're decorating. Who cares? Here's an interesting bit from 1936 about unmatching your walls. For instance, there is the little matter of unmatched walls. For years, we have clung tenaciously to the belief that all four walls of a room must be decorated alike. Our great-great-grandparents knew better. In how many of the beautiful old colonial homes were there rooms with the fireplace wall wood paneled and the other three walls papered? In general, wallpapers were used widely and the patterns were often quite complex. 1878, about wallpapers. Whether the result is worth the pains may be a question. I think it is. A lot of attention was also put into designing and planning the floors. 1925, the general law that the floor should be darker than the walls and the walls darker than the ceiling was carried out. And around the turn of the century, the world of interior design was obsessed with one thing floor-wise: linoleum. I found several interior design guides that were basically marketing leaflets for linoleum producing companies. And the patterns were, as I mentioned, absolutely bonkers. I think the appeal was so great because it seemed like a very easy solution. You know, it's cheap, you can have beautiful patterns on it, and some people still swear by it nowadays, even though as a society we do find them a little dated. 1936. If you yearn for, but cannot afford wood-paneled walls, linoleum again comes to the rescue by reproducing with astonishing fidelity the grain and coloring of both walnut and knotty pine, at a fraction of the cost of natural woods. Older guides say pre-1920s focus a lot on woodwork, and this is something that then is gradually mentioned less and less as it appears less in the interiors, mostly because it fell out of fashion, but also because new houses that were being built were lacking those features. It was not really featured, and it was not really... Old interiors also employ a lot of fabrics, which is something I personally love and do in my flat a lot. I just think it warms the space up so much. It just gives it this very cozy, homely vibe. And I guess they thought the same, because in 1910 they wrote, "The fabrics for curtains and upholstery required to give the final touch of livableness to the home are so varied in kind, quality, and price that it will be necessary to speak of these individually as suited to distinctive types of rooms. For the hall, living room, and dining room in the small house or cottage, simple, inexpensive fabrics should be selected. More important than the fabric used for the curtains is the way they are made and hung." This is a hot take, because I think the fabric matters a lot, but maybe they are right that even the most beautiful drapery, if it's just hanging sadly by the window, is not gonna do much. 1930, your first consideration must be not to interfere with the function of the window, to admit light and air in planning curtains. The next is to make the curtains decorative and yet a part of the general background of the room. And then furniture. Here is what they have to say about practicality of furniture. 1930. Never buy a chair, no matter how attractive it seems, that you do not take comfort in sitting on. That's the function of a chair. They're onto something here. In the same way, do not buy a desk until you have found it comfortable to use for writing. Yeah, that's solid advice. I mean, I have bought armchairs that were very pretty, but they're not the most comfortable armchairs ever, so I rarely use them. But then how was I supposed to know online? This part is really interesting to me because they speak about something that I've done a lot in my flat, which was mixing different historical periods. So that was already a concern back then, from 1930, the same book. Putting furniture of various periods together. Contrary to popular belief, it is not necessary to have a room completely furnished in one period. Furniture of many periods may be combined so long as the sizes, colors, and forms are harmonious. A different guide from the same year. While a strictly period interior is not desirable, it is well to have the furniture conform to the architectural type of the house. I love this advice because that's sort of what I did. My flat is from 1920s, 1930s, and especially in the living room, I was like, I have to show this style in the interior. Even though maybe it's not like my all-time favorite, because I also love 19th century and 18th century, which I've tried to apply in different rooms, but the living room is Art Deco, and I think it works. It's solid advice. And one more tip from 1936 regarding furniture. A common mistake in furniture arrangement is to push everything back against the walls. The idea is that this arrangement makes the room look larger. It does. It also robs it of all life and meaning. That's a brutal read. One thing that to me is very vintage style is the use of pictures and paintings of the walls. And here is a test from 1930 on how to determine whether something should be hung on the wall or not. Before you hang a picture, apply this test. Is it the right color? Is the size and shape harmonious with the wall space? Is it beautiful? Is it suitably framed? And finally, we have two pieces of advice from 1936 that I think sum up the whole thing perfectly. Fashions are fleeting. The constant clamor is for something new, and astute manufacturers make it their business to provide it. The particular little group of colors, patterns, weaves, and trimmings diligently urged upon the public as high style in any given season is quickly cast aside and a fresh group takes its place. But each in its turn is a signpost pointing the course along which fashion moves. And unmistakably, the current trend in textiles, as in wall and floor coverings, is towards simplicity, vibrant color, texture, and rhythmic design. With one or two exceptions, there probably is no rule of decoration which may not be broken if you go about it intelligently. That's also solid advice. You actually don't have to follow any of the rules that I've just read out, but it's just food for thought, really. To sum up, why do I feel like people from the times where those guides were published were much more courageous when it came to interior design? Looks like not only have we gotten a little bit lazy, but also minimalism is making us afraid to do anything creative. To the point where even using a paint that is a different color than white or off-white feels risky. I think we could all benefit from treating interior design, especially in spaces that we exist in, not as a lifelong commitment. Well, to a degree, because obviously you're not going to be swapping furniture every month, but things such as paint, wallpaper, rugs, pictures, they really are only temporary and we can take risks. It's not that serious. Let's have fun. I don't know. Anyway, thank you.